Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affairs Analysis for 28th November 2019. These are the articles for the day and the sources are mentioned here. The first article for the day is taken from the Hindu and it is titled A Blow to the Disclosure Norms. This is in the context of the judgment of Supreme Court that the office of Chief Justice of India would come under the RTA Act 2005. Now let us look at the three wings of the government: the legislature, judiciary and the executive, and what is the disclosure norms given under RTI and what is Supreme Court's interpretation in this context. Now what is the definition of public authority under section 2F of RTI Act 2005? Under this section, information means any material in any form including records, documents, memos, emails, opinions, advice and any format, whether it is electronic or physical, or any information relating to any private body which can be accessed by a public authority. Now who is this public authority? This is defined in section 2F of the RTI Act. Under this, previously judges of the Supreme Court refused to share the information on personal assets of the judges and other judicial members. However, election laws in our country make it mandatory for the declaration of assets by ministers and legislators, and this provides the citizenry with more relevant information about their representatives. With this 14 September initiative, even the institution of Supreme Court and Chief Justice of India came under the ambit of RTI Act public authority definition. Now we have to come to the question of bureaucrats. The officers of All India Services and Group A Services who constitute the executive of the government, what about them? How open are the details of bureaucrats in public domain and what is court's ruling on this? This is the article that speaks about the status of bureaucrats under the definition of public authority. Now, since judicial pronouncements are very long and we cannot read it entirely for our exam, we have to rely on articles like this. So this is a legal opinion, and as per the analysis of this author, para 59 of the judgment has given some exquisite information on what is the status of bureaucracy. Under this judgment, there is a paragraph number 59, which speaks about what is the personal information. Personal information in the context of bureaucracy includes all the personal recordings, evaluation reports, disciplinary proceedings, and information relating to assets, liabilities, and income tax are all considered to be personal information. Now, these restrictions under Section 8, which lays down the criteria on what constitutes public interest and what is not, is questioned by the author. How can the court say that educational qualification, performance report of disciplinary proceedings pertaining to public servants as outside the ambit of disclosure? How can the Supreme Court say that? That is what this author is questioning. If a specific educational degree is made mandatory for a post, why can't the public have access to that information? Similarly, if a particular cost of medical treatment is reimbursed by the state, how can that medical record become personal information? Every time the applicant will now be made to prove public interest, which is a concept that has been made further complex by this judicial pronouncement. That is what this article is trying to say. In the last parliamentary session, the Parliament has amended the RTI Act and compromised on the security of tenure for chief election commissioners. Now, this Supreme Court order is another blow to the spirit of RTI, and we have to relook at the spirit of RTI to ensure that it is not undermined. In this context, try to answer this question. The next article for the day is titled Gubernatorial Restructuring, and this is regarding the institution of governor and his controversial discretionary powers during the government formation after an election takes place, especially in the case of hung assembly. This is an important question for UPSC because In the last couple of years, the role of governor came under question in Karnataka Legislative Assembly elections, and even before the abrogation of Article 370, Jammu and Kashmir governor dissolved the state assembly, which has been in suspended animation when two political parties separately staked claim to form a government. Now this brings us to the question as to who shall have a precedence when they have differential claims to form a government. Now let us go back to the days of Constitutional Assembly when Dr. B.R. Ambedkar unequivocally said that governor must always follow the advice of ministers in all matters except when deciding who should form the government when there is no clear post-poll majority. This is what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said. As a result, Article 164 Clause 1 says that the Chief Minister shall be appointed by the Governor, and Supreme Court clarified in this regard that there is no qualification mentioned in Article 164 Clause 1, and reading it with Article 164 Clause 2, we have a collective responsibility, that is the condition of Chief Ministerial candidate need to satisfy that he or she should be commanding majority in the House. But this discretionary power is being misused by governors. It may encourage horse trading of MLAs, defections, which is against the spirit of the 10th schedule, and decline in public trust in the office of governor. In the same way, last year in the case of Goa and Manipur, the single largest party was not even given preference to form the government, unlike in the case of Karnataka. This raised the questions on the role of governor and also forced the Supreme Court to take cognizance of this issue. Even in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, the governor's discretionary power to use Article 356, that is the power to impose President's rule or recommend President's rules rather, has been brought under question. Now if we look at S.R. Bommai's case, the Supreme Court said that the imposition of constitutional emergency in a state for political gains has been abused by central governments more than 120 times till date. So in this case, we hold that exercise of control of the union executive over the state executive is opposed by the basic scheme of the Indian Constitution. Also in the BP Singhal versus Union of India case, Supreme Court called for a security of tenure for governors so that their control discretionary powers are not leveraged by the central government due to their insecurity of tenure. In the Rameshwar Prasad versus Union of India case, the Supreme Court recommended that a governor cannot shut out post-poll alliances altogether as one of the ways in which a popular government may be formed. So any unsubstantiated claims of horse trading or corruption in efforts to the government formation cannot be cited as reason to dissolve the assembly. Now in this context, let us examine what Sarkaria Commission said regarding the office of governor. Now these are the recommendations of Sarkaria Commission. The commission said that the party or combination of parties with the widest support in the legislative assembly should be called upon to form the government. If there is a pre-poll alliance or coalition, it should be treated as one political party, and if such a coalition obtains a majority, the leader of such coalition should be called by the governor to form the government. And in the case where there is no party or pre-poll coalition and where there is no clear majority, the governor should follow this order of preference. First, the pre-poll alliance with the largest number of legislators must be called to form the government. Otherwise, if that is not an option, he should take the single largest party into confidence. Even if that is not possible, he has to consider a post-electoral coalition with all partners joining the government. And the last case scenario would be a post-electoral alliance with some parties joining the government and the remaining supporting from outside. And the Punchi Commission in this regard, regarding the role of governor, said that the governor must follow constitutional conventions in the case of hung assembly. Now the Rajmannar committee, which was constituted by Tamil Nadu to look into the center-state relations in 1969, recommended that state governments be included in the appointment process of governors. Now, this says that governor must be accompanied by answerability, transparency and accountability. In this context, try to answer this question. The next article for the day is taken from Indian Express and it is titled Smarter Than Aadhaar. This is regarding the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, which was launched in August on pilot basis in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra and Gujarat. What is this scheme about? As per National Food Security Act, all the beneficiaries would get subsidized grains through fair price ration shops, and this will ensure their food security. However, our economic survey says that there is a problem of access to migrants who move from one place to another to ensure that they get quality food grains as per National Food Security Act. This is because in the current scheme of things, the present PDS or public distribution system or PDS entitlements are tied to the recipient's place of residence. You can only draw PDS rations from the PDS outlet to which you are allocated. In order to overcome this problem, the present government has proposed this One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, where families who have food security cards can buy subsidized rice and wheat from any ration shop in these states, but their ration card should be linked to Aadhaar. This, the government believes, will provide freedom to the beneficiaries as they will not be tied to any one PDS shop and reduce their dependence on shop owners. And this will also curtail instances of corruption. However, this scheme has posed certain challenges. The first one is interoperability. Different states have different systems of PDS and it is a challenge to bring them all to a common platform and ensure interoperability without disrupting the present state of services. Secondly, Shanta Kumar committee has said that as much as 97% of the PDS rations are being dwindled through corruption in states like Chhattisgarh. Now, unless and until we have a proper supply chain tracking mechanism, this scheme would be open to even more corruption. Third, the issue of privacy laws. Now, Aadhaar is being made mandatory. However, there is this common criticism of invasion of privacy by the utilization of Aadhaar. There is no answer for that as well. There have been instances where a girl has been denied service because her biometric authentication failed or there was no availability of Aadhaar card and there is no other alternative way to ensure that food grains are available. In a country which has made significant strides in prosperity and development, the fact that just because of denial of service, a person can die a starvation death is a horror. It is a clear case of failure on the part of governance. And lastly, there might be server issues or petty technical issues which can cause disruption of services. Now, to all this criticism, this author, who is a professor from IIM Ahmedabad, proposes the model that has been more successful in states like Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu, where a simple smart card is used instead of Aadhaar. This will solve the problem of privacy or denial of services posed by Aadhaar, and the second step she proposes is creating a supply chain system to track the rations. With these two steps and creating a point of sale that also accommodates offline sale will ensure that in case of server issues in areas with low connectivity, denial of services cannot take place and incidences like starvation deaths in the case of Chhattisgarh can be avoided. The ultimate purpose of governance is to ensure welfare of people, and just to push one particular idea you cannot take away certain lives. That is the central argument posed by this author. Also, I have to mention that there is one September 26th article which mentions all these issues, yet the author criticizes why the authors of that particular article were sidelining the fact that Aadhaar led to the death of a girl. You can't help but appreciate the journalistic ethos of Indian Express in this context. Now coming back, how to answer this question? Critically examine the feasibility of one nation, one ration card. Answer this question. The last article for the day is taken from Live Mint and it is titled Antibiotics are contaminating rivers and posing health risks. Recently, the Bureau of Indian Standards declared that the water in Delhi is of very poor quality. This, along with the polluted air, is causing a lot of trouble. Now, this article speaks specifically with respect to how the pharmaceutical industry is polluting rivers with antibiotics which have serious health concerns. Now, this brings us to the larger question of water governance. How are we governing our water? How are we taking care of surface and underground water? Are we exploiting the water resources? Are we taking care of ensuring that water cycles have proper meaning and significance? Are we living with having a sound knowledge of ecological principles and how environment functions? Do we really care? Do we really understand? This is not just a philosophical question, but is also a question of our existence. There is a serious need to consider sustainable consumption, which is also one of the Sustainable Development Goals as laid down by the UN. This article throws some light on how antibiotics like ciprofloxacin, norfloxacin, oxytetracycline and ofloxacin are left out into water bodies by pharmaceutical manufacturing companies. Now, what is the threat posed by such high concentration of chemicals, especially drugs, in surface and underground water? This is the question that this article is trying to address. Firstly, infants are the most vulnerable group who will be affected by such highly susceptible waterborne pathogens. Infant mortality is also a good indicator because they don't have any prior exposure to pollution. Even national level plans like National River Conservation Plan or the Ganga Action Plan, which is one of the largest river cleaning projects of our country, still witness a limited success because of the continued discharge of untreated or partially treated water into nearby water bodies. There is also a statistic which says that clean water supply and sanitation to the whole of India can save nearly 3 to 8 billion by way of foregone earnings. So that is roughly around 59% of annual environmental cost in India, which is incurred on surface water pollution alone. Many hormones, painkillers, antidepressants which are some of the biggest concerns in the pharmaceutical industry, are left out into water without any treatment, and the situation is set to worsen as the use of pharmaceuticals rises with aging population and non-communicable diseases. Now, this is a very serious issue that we have to consider, because if the authorities continue with business as usual approach, the targets are insurmountable. The government's own data itself says that the number of polluted stretches and rivers across the country increased manifold in the past few years. That is the reason why we have to focus on SDG goal of responsible consumption. Now, in this context, try to answer this question. What are the various causes for declining quality of water across Indian cities? Examine the deleterious effects of ill health.